This is a public service announcement to all my so-called African Americans whose name and title stemmed from the names of two Italians, Scipio Africanus and Amerigo Vespucci. God standeth in the congregation of the mighty. He judgeth among the gods. How long will ye judge unjustly and accept the persons of the wicked? Defend the poor and fatherless. Do justice to the afflicted and needy. Deliver the poor and needy, rid them out of the hands of the wicked. They know not, neither will they understand. All the foundations of the earth are out of course. I have said, ye are gods, and you are children of the Most High. Arise, O God, for thou shalt inherit all nations. In this presentation, I will be using the infamous Greco-Roman Councils of Men plagiarized rewrite of ancient esoteric occult sciences as a main point of reference to display the spirituality of our people. We need a better comprehension of learning. We need a better comprehension and learning of what the Americanized European quote-unquote Holy Bible, which translates to mean Helios Biblios in Greek, which literally translates to mean Sun Papers. We need a better comprehension of what the Sun Papers is telling us as it relates to the original men of quote-unquote God from the ancient Lemurian, Atlantean, Akkadian, African, Pangean region. Ethiopia and Egypt were her strength, and it was infinite, according to Nahum chapter 3. Original men of quote-unquote God, whom were only one level removed from divinity, if not divine enough to be gods themselves. And the Lord said, I have made you a god to Pharaoh, in Exodus chapter 7, while talking to Thutmose III, commonly known as Moses in the Sun Papers. Constantine, Plato, and other European councils of men like King James and his lover and co-author of the plagiarized doctrine, William Shakespeare, worshiped two homosexual men, Zeus and Serapis, name later conjoined and changed to one, Jesus the Christ, to deflate arguing and fighting over whom the Europeans were to worship. Two men, being Zeus and Serapis, commonly known as Jesus the Christ, whose homosexual appetite and moreover common practice throughout Greece, Rome, and all of England and Europe encouraged the molestation and sodomy of young boys. Some of the first written words to Alexander the Gay from Plato quotes as he refers to homosexuality amongst European soldiers and homosexuality in European politics. These are some of the first words. If there were only some way, some of the first words written to Alexander the Great from Alexander the Great. It was written from Plato. It was written by Plato to Alexander the Great. If there were only some way of contriving that a state or an army should be made up of lovers and their loves, they would be the very best governors of their own city, abstaining from all dishonor and emulating one another. Being as though the Caucasian male hated his very own existence and hated his Caucasian woman for her ability to reproduce while banished to the harsh reality of ice-cold caves in which they had to use their own feces as insulation. Hence the mud fighting metaphor. It was so cold in the Caucasus Mountains they had to use their own feces to stay warm. The formerly melanated and newly exiled to mountains Caucasian caveman indulged in sex with other men, sex with small children, and even sex with wild mountain monkeys, dogs, and rabbits. Hence the abominations known as gonorrhea, chlamydia, and herpes. The savage Caucasus cave beast, whom was once a human, but now completely melanin deficient and therefore soul deficient, SOL, which means sun, where the word soul, S-O-U-L, comes from, S-O-L, soul. The savage Caucasus cave beast, whom was once a human, but now completely melanin and therefore soul deficient, even went as far as to having sex with dead people and dead animals. This tendency, philosophy, and all-around death style is a part of Caucasoidian DNA. Unfortunately, a part of their DNA, unfortunately, as represented by the papacy of the Roman Catholic Church molesting children to this day, and our white supremacist homosexual government indoctrinating us with gay pride while manufacturing diseases like syphilis and AIDS for targeting black people. In the 70s and 80s, only people with AIDS was gay, white, and Hispanic men from California, which somehow made it here to America from a monkey in Africa, like they always say. It always comes from something in Africa. AIDS, that is, came from a monkey in Africa. Acquired immune deficiency syndrome, which makes no sense. Now the majority of people with AIDS is the most valuable asset on this planet, maybe in the entire universe. The black woman, that is. Google Agenda 21, depopulation, and you will find that the United States government invented and patented the cure for AIDS. Patent number 6676977. Only after creating the so-called acquired immune deficiency syndrome, like I said, which makes no sense by definition. How can your immune system acquire an acquired deficiency in your immune system? A syndrome, though, like that. If you look up the definition for acquired immune deficiency and syndrome, it makes no sense. AIDS is not real. It's a man-made disease implemented to create fear within us. Acquired immune deficiency syndrome was created in a laboratory right here in Maryland somewhere. And according to Bill Cooper, AIDS is being manufactured inside the synthesized opium-based drug known as heroin. You don't get AIDS from sharing needles. The AIDS is, and they making it inside the dope, folks. You will find the United States government invented it and patented in Agenda 21, depopulation. You will find the United States government invented and patented Ebola, patent number CA274152381. Invented it and patented swine flu, patent number 8124101. All in an effort to keep us fear-filled, while directly assaulting our mental immunity. Whatever one thinks, one becomes. And if every time we turn on the news, we hear of the latest rendition of H1N1, the bird flu, and the Zika virus, which is a direct attack and assault on a fetus while still in the womb, we claim that as our own, directly or indirectly, consciously or subconsciously. Then feel compelled to get a cancer-causing vaccination. Unfortunately, this false fag feminization fear doctrine has filtered its way into the psyche of the most powerful creator of this realm, the black man, via those who govern our mental. The church induces a homosexual mindset being defined by the number of obvious flamboyantly flaming faggots allowed to preach behind the pulpit, lead the choir, and play the piano, especially in black churches and black communities. It seems as such anyway. Our melanin soul, S-O-U-L, or soul, S-O-L, which means the sun, our melanin soul power gives us more swag, or whatever you want to call it, off top. We more swagged out off top because of our melanin. Soul brothers, soul power, you dig? Some people can't do what we do and how we do it, no matter how much they try. And a lot of us soul people overdo everything. Myself, no exclusion. And the reason for our borderline obsessive compulsive psychotic nature is because of the diet, health, and all-around lifestyle that most black or so-called African American children and people subscribe to, which is the exactly wrong way some people should be living. If a plant-based 150-degree jungle human is fed refined sugar and meat, it's gonna fuck him up and alter his DNA, point blank period. We come from a region that's 100 degrees plus, a tropical rainforest. All we ate was sun and plants and drank water. Now everything we eat is a snack, some type of snack with white refined sugar or starch or high fructose corn syrup, also known as poison, a direct assault on the melanin man. Nonetheless, at the same time, this Euro homo tranny invasion is upon us. At this same time, the church demonizes any notion of a man and a woman having sex and making love before what we perceive to be marriage. Not surprising after standing under the fact of the matter that these modern day religions were erected by councils of men whose highest aspiration was fucking another dude up the ass. Anyway, continuing on and making a complete mockery of tainted fag doctrine while propelling us into remembrance of our divinity, we read a story of the character Saul in 1 Samuel chapter 9. Saul is Samuel's apprentice and partner, whom are both representations of our ancient Akkadian African ancestors. The entire Bible, the Holy Bible, which translates to mean sun papers, literally, sun papers, is telling us the story of us millions of years ago, except it's been maybe even trillions of years ago, except it's been condensed down and watered down to fit this form of history, which only dates back a short 7,000 years ago or so. Why? Because that's the only thing that fit the non-human's history. 7,000 years ago. That's as far as they can go back, because it wasn't none of them before then. Or none of us, rather, I should say. But without melanin, banished to a cave and melanin deficient now. God gave him, Saul, back to 1 Samuel chapter 9. God gave him, Saul they're talking about. God gave him another heart, and the Spirit of God came upon him. The passage reads. Then in chapter 16 verse 14, Saul has to implore the services of master harp player young boy David, who has yet to slay Goliath and become king, to save Saul from an, and I quote, evil spirit from quote unquote God. I consider this to be one of many evidences in the Helios Biblios, or sun papers, referring to our ancestors quote unquote God as more than one, as in the Lord of hosts, plural with an S, a council of elders, if you will, the Elohim, which translates to mean many men or many gods. And the passage reads, but the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord troubled him. And Saul said to Jesse, which is David's dad, let David, I pray thee, stand before me, for he hath found favor in my sight. And it came to pass, when the evil spirit from God was upon Saul, that David took a harp and played with his hand, and Saul was refreshed, and the evil spirit departed from him. Essentially, this begins the chronicles of King David, an encouraging and empowering story which proves to us that anyone can be great. Not only the bloodlines who have subverted and engineered systematically their way into positions of power throughout the ages. Ruth, David's great-great-grandmother, was not of a quote-unquote pure bloodline and known as a quote-unquote heathen. And Boaz, David's great-great-grandfather, was only allowed to marry Ruth out of default. Boaz was the son of a prostitute from Jericho and had no opportunity to know the God of Israel in childhood, according to the introduction to the book of Ruth in the King James Hebrew Greek Key Study Bible, Spiros Zadhiades, THD, compiler and editor. Great-great-grandmom Ruth and great-great-granddad Boaz produced a son named Obed, who fathered Jesse, the father of King David. Therefore, the so-called royal Messianic bloodline stems from roots outside of the region titled Israel, also known as Isis, Amen-Ra, and Elohim. Nevertheless, quote-unquote, Israel is located in the central Middle Earth region where Mesopotamia, now called Iran and Iraq and Pakistan, the Middle East, all that is. That used to be called Mesopotamia, which is technically is nothing more than Africa and Asia. It's a small piece of land in between two small rivers, the Tigris and Euphrates River, also known as the Fertile Crescent. That small strip of land and those two small rivers separates the large landmass Africa and the large landmass Asia, Asiatic Africa, which is, you can clear, if you look on a map, you can see that is basically one huge landmass. That all that's Africa, Asiatic Africa. Upon further observation of a world map, you can clearly see where the land masses of Asia, Africa, and North and South America can fit together perfectly, like pieces of a puzzle. This is very, very important, a very, very important piece to the puzzle when considering this entire planet is the remnants and remains of a singular supercontinent, being described by the mass amount of strikingly similar pyramids, statues, monuments, and glyphs across vast miles of land and sea, which just so happens to mirror pyramids, statues, and monuments on the surface of the moon and Mars as well. Yes, that's correct. Pyramids, statues, buildings, monuments, remains of people, black and brown people, heavily melanated people on Mars and the moon. Yes, Google it. All of which latitudinal and longitudinal coordinates align with different constellations and star systems like Sirius A, B, and C throughout the course of precession. The pyramids on Mars is on the 33rd the 33rd latitudinal and longitudinal. The pyramids here on Earth over there on the Giza Plateau, same thing. They all line up to different stars and constellations in our galaxy throughout the course of precession. They all line up on the 33rd parallel here on Earth and on Mars and on the moon. Nonetheless, Mesopotamia translates to mean, it literally means between the rivers. The word Mesopotamia, which is known today as Pakistan, Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, Africa, and Asia, basically. That's Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia literally means between the rivers. Genesis chapter 2 reads, "And the Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and a river went out of Eden and was parted into four. The name of the first is Pishon, which compasseth the whole land of Havilah, where the gold is. And the name of the second river is Gihon, that compasseth the whole land of Ethiopia. And the name of the third river is Hiddekel, which goeth toward the east of Assyria. And the fourth river is Euphrates." Continuing on, however, the representation of one of many of our ancient Kemetic forefathers in the form of the character David was one of many men used by quote-unquote God throughout the entire Bible. So-called God, quote-unquote God, uses a plethora of normal men, some of them less than normal, bums. For example, your favorite guy, Jesus the Christ, also known as Zeus and Serapis, before the Greco-Roman councils of men created this Jesus Christ guy. The story of Jesus was a bum. A bum, sheep herding bum. but the Son of God. But talking about David though, a mighty man, a mighty valiant man of war was the young teenage boy David, according to eyewitness account in 1 Samuel chapter 16. What shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine, that taketh away from Israel, and defy the armies of the living God, says young David, when he was no more than 14, 15, a teenage boy with a mighty valiant stature. That's because we was still one level removed from God. That's because we was God back then still. Statues all over this earth prove it, and on other worlds. Whom this particular living God, quote unquote, living God is in this passage, what shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine, that taketh away from Israel, and defy the armies of the living God, says young David. Whom this particular living God is, I'm not sure. Thought, quote unquote, God was a spirit. Obviously, the characters portraying our ancient ancestors in this Greco-Roman English fable walked alongside some sort of flesh and blood living God, supporting the conclusion that the Holy Bible, or Helios Biblios, which literally translates to mean sun papers, S-U-N papers, is of a very literal, metaphorical, allegorical, and astrological nature. And if quote unquote Israel was the home of, and I quote, a living God, emphasis on the word a, which is singular, suggesting there is more than one. If that was the home, if Israel was the home of a living God, we must reevaluate our religious belief systems that has been confiscated, tainted, and then refurbished and refashioned to fancy our oppressors. We must always remember during these ancient times, still very close to what has been dubbed the beginning, or the Genesis, which simply means the beginning, man was one level removed from divinity or heaven, if not still a part of so-called heaven. According to the Greco-Roman King James Shakespearean stolen story, the kingdom of God in heaven cometh not with observation. The kingdom of God in heaven is within you. We must keep in mind that we are dealing with a point in time before Christianity, before Christ, and before Caucasoidian, BC. In the Sumerian tablets, specifically the tablet of Nippur, the Sumerians, whom are ancient Sidonian Akkadians, black people in other words, tell the story of their creator gods, the Anunnaki or Anuki, whom were nothing more than an advanced species of black people from elsewhere in the cosmos. They ain't gonna tell you that in history class though, on the History Channel. They'll tell you everything else. It was aliens. Oh, it was something else. They can't tell you that black people been here for 1 trillion years, walking around on this planet, grafting people, cloning people, genetically engineering people. They can't tell you that, or else it might make us remember what we come from. Dig what I'm saying? The Anunnaki, or Anuki, nothing more than an advanced species of black people from elsewhere in the cosmos. The ancient Sumerian tablet of Nippur reads, after Anu, Enlil, Enki, and Ninsharag, all elders or high councilmen, high priesthood of the Anuki. After Anu, Enlil, Enki, and Ninsharag had fashioned the black-headed people, vegetation sprang from the earth. Animals and four-legged creatures of the plain were brought artfully into existence. Here we clearly see where the story of creation was stolen for the Helios Biblios, or sun papers, our ancient accounts, from 1 trillion years before the Bible was plagiarized. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad proclaimed that one of our ancient advanced ancestors grafted the non-melaninated being no more than 6,500 years ago. Hence the reason, like I said, all of our quote-unquote history can only begin a few short thousand years ago, when in actuality, the original supreme being of this planet has been here for millions, billions, maybe even trillions trillions of years, which mainstream science is having no choice but to admit. Maybe why more than 70 scientists have mysteriously died over the last couple years. Google it. More than 70 scientists dying mysteriously. Maybe because of this reason, that all these evidences are popping up. It may be because one of the many topics of discussion that they talk about is that we are being intentionally disinformed about. We are intentionally being disinformed about these vaccines, these mandatory vaccines, and fluoride. They cause cancer. That's the real reason for cancer. Along with these lotions and deodorants and hair greases we putting in the food we eat. That's what causes cancer. These scientists, maybe in the hundreds now, maybe even hundreds of scientists by now, they made the link. They made the link to these mandatory vaccinations they make our children get, and cancer. That being the cause of cancer. And I'm pretty sure it's also because they found out that black man is God. Anyway, in Genesis chapter 30, we have allegorical representation of Jacob, which translates to mean Yaqub, before the invention of the letter J. There was no letter J. Y was used. Jacob means Yaqub. In Genesis chapter 30, we have an allegorical representation of one Yaqub, one of our ancient ancestors, a trillion-year-old advanced black man. Google big head scientist. YouTube the story of Yashmal and Yaqub, the big head scientists. In the Bible, we have allegorical representation of big head scientist Yaqub, ancient cosmonaut, ancient black man, grafting or cloning or genetically modifying or engineering white man, right here in the Bible. Genesis chapter 30. I'm about to read it. Considering humans were constantly referred to as sheep in the Bible, considering that people or human were constantly referred to as sheep in the Bible, Genesis chapter 30 makes perfect sense. I will pass through all the flock today. This is Jacob or Yaqub talking. I will pass through all the flock today, removing from them all the speckled and spotted and all the brown, everyone that is not speckled and spotted and brown. And he removed that day the ring-streaked and spotted and all the brown. And Jacob or Yaqub did separate and set the faces of the flocks toward the ring-streaked and all the brown. Maybe you read that different. Everybody reads, comprehends, or perceives things differently. It's all based on your amount of study and research. I've been studying and researching non-established information that's not being force-fed to us via established religion, science, and so-called education. I've been studying this stuff for 20 years at least. I got my master's, my doctorate in this. You hear me? Nonetheless, if quote-unquote Israel, or Isis, Amun-Ra, and Elohim, Israel, was home of a living God when man was one level removed from God, that would suggest we are currently residing on foreign land as prisoners of war after being captured and removed from our home turf. The ancient Atlantean, Lemurian, Sumerian, Mesopotamian region, commonly known as Asiatic Africa, which was once conjoined together with native or North America and was one colossal landmass or continent known as Pangaea. That's what Pangaea is. The North American continent, Canada, America, and South America. Imagine, if you look on a map, you can clearly see Asiatic Africa and the North American Union can conjoin. You can clearly see how over time, over floods and chaos, more than one great flood too, In the Sumerian tablets, we have accounts of a great flood. And the Enuma Elish, the entire Bible was stolen and rewritten by Greco-Roman European Englishmen to fit them. Luckily for us, we have people that are deciphering this ancient book and dating it way back longer than 7,000 years. This book was stolen from probably about a 7 trillion year time period. YouTube the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. You'll clearly see. YouTube, Google the Sumerian tablets. I realize this is all some sort of gotta know where you come from to know where you go in fiasco. Who was given permission to strip us of our link to divinity and remove us from the land we called home? Was it Yaqub, the genetic engineer of the non-human being? As those of us whom have no hue are melanin deficient and therefore of a weaker bloodline, DNA, and ultimately spiritual protection known as the Merkaba, could it have been draconian etherical forces whom specialize in the possession and control of the non-melaninated being that manifested here in this physical realm and led so-called conquerors and conquistadors to what they dubbed their new land, initiating the beginning of the largest mass genocide, enslavement, and colonization known to mankind? In Columbus's captain's log dated October 11, 1492, reports of an unidentified submersible object brightly lit ascending from the ocean and guiding his ship is recorded. Maybe this is the Most High God, supreme consciousness and intelligence, showing us who and what we are via thousands of years of persecution. The so-called African American, who we got our name, they gave it, Italian Englishmen, Amerigo Vespucci and Scipio Africanus is where the African American, where we get our name from. That's because we don't know about Kemet and Kush. We don't know what Africa was called before. We don't know about the Asiatic black man. We don't know about Sambo and the Negas. So we get our name from Italians. The so-called African American, real title Lemurian, Atlantean, real title Akkadian, Sidonian, Sumerian, Mesopotamian, or Cometian, or Cushite. The so-called Africanus Amerigoans is the only race of people on this planet who has been displaced, enslaved, and terrorized the way we were, and furthermore currently are. Us and the native land Indians, who were pretty much eradicated and whom are nothing more than a melaninated human, if you will. In other words, this is prophecy, and now it's time for the return of God's Son, S-U-N, that is. According to the precession of the Equinox, a 24,000-year multi-galaxy star, sun, and planetary orbitary cycle that includes our Milky Way galaxy, newly titled Immeasurable Heaven, due to our connection with the various superclusters of galaxies we are a part of. For the last 7,000 years approximately, this part of our galaxy, and this planet in particular, has been casted far out of the reaches of various stars and suns' light of immeasurable heaven, casted out in darkness where non-hue or non-colored mankind entities can thrive and survive. Just so happens that the last several thousand years of this planet's timeline involved the mass extinction and genocide of black, brown, red, yellow, and any form of melaninated human or colored man beings. Just so happens the intentionally melanin deficient engineered Caucasoidian mankind caveman who was exiled out of prehistoric Africa and banished to northernly mountainous regions where he lost his hue, color, or pigment or melanin, escaped the Caucasus Mountains and has been on a rampage for approximately the last 6,000 to 7,000 years. Coincidence? Not hardly. Welcome to Planet Hell, ladies and gentlemen. They shall build, but I will throw down the border of wickedness, and the people whom the Lord hath indignation forever. For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud and all that do wickedly, the day cometh that shall burn them up. But unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings. And ye shall go forth and tread down the wicked, for they shall be ashes under the soles of your feet. I'd like to take a moment to highlight that in this scripture of the Sun Papers, we have the word S-U-N as in S-U-N, Son of Righteousness, arising with healing in its wings, spelled S-U-N. Maybe one of the only times in the Holy Bible, or Helios Biblios, or which translates to mean sun papers, we have the word son, S-U-N. The entire Bible, when they talk about God's Son, the Son of God, the Son of Man, whatever, son, they're talking about S-U-N, Jack. Nonetheless, during the time when whom our ancestors called God or gods were apparently manifested here in this physical realm known as living gods, according to King David, our ancient forefathers and their God of living form was from what has been dubbed the motherland. According to the Genographic Project, the current representation of mankind, meaning all 7 billion of us, melaninated or not, are from one central location in what we now call the Middle East African Asiatic region. Be proud, be exuberant, and rejoice, for you have survived being removed from grace and stripped of your inheritance. We are all descendants of mighty men, supermen if you will, that lived for hundreds of thousands of years. In the Sumerian king list, another fragment of the Sumerian tablets, we have the names, ages, and time. Yeah, the Sumerian tablets are broken down into various different tablets. We had the Enuma Elish, the tablet of Nippur, where the Bible gets the story of creation from. And this segment, or in this tablet, the Sumerian king list, we have the names and ages and time span of rule for many different ancient god kings. In Genesis chapter 5 of the Sun Papers, we have a revision, of course, of the ancient Sumerian account of this. The entire Bible is stolen from ancient black people, period. And rewritten by councils of men, councils of faggot men who were trying to establish a history, establish some type of rule for themselves. Because they refuse. If anything do happen, one thing that ain't gonna happen, they ain't going back to them caves. If they gotta spray the sun, if they gotta chemtrail our sun out of existence, they will do it. They will take away the life giver of this planet. Anyway, in the Sumerian king list, we have the names, ages, and time span of rule for many different ancient god kings. In Genesis chapter 5 of the Sun Papers, we have a revision, of course, of the ancient Sumerian account. Adam lived 130 years and begat a son in his own likeness after his image. And the days of Adam after he had begotten Seth were 800 years. And all the days that Adam lived were 930 years. And Seth begat Enos, and all the days of Seth were 912 years. And Enos begat Canaan, and other sons and daughters, and all the days of Enos were 905 years. And the entire chapter 5 of Genesis details the lifespan of one level removed from divinity, gods, in the form of men. Maybe this is why we were engineered with a liver that acts as a germ and poison filter, eventually passing all undesirables out of the body. Maybe this is why we were equipped with a voice box that no other mammal, animal, reptile, or amphibian has. The closest being the dolphin, which produces some type of sonar as it sings or screams in the water. It makes noises, and other dolphins miles and miles away can hear it. Besides the dolphin, no other being in existence on this planet has a voice box, or the larynx is what it's called. Maybe this is why the pineal gland of our brains, currently the size of a corn kernel and responsible for our spiritual and psychic connection with each other as well as the Most High, used to be the size of a ping pong ball. The pineal gland, that is, which is currently the size of a pea or a corn kernel or a piece of corn. It used to be the size of a ping pong ball. That's responsible for our God-like behavior, psychic abilities. Over time, we have been dumbed down and reduced. Let them tell it. In the prehistoric cave, we came such a far way from that prehistoric hairy dog mountain Caucasus boy. What about before then, though, when we was God? At the same time, the Caucasus man was banished to his cave, and he was a human, a colored man. At the same time he was being banished, a whole gang of a human banished to a cave so they could lose their melanin. At that same time, it was statues erected of us all over the globe. Naughty head, big nose, big lip, black men. God. We are divine. Period. And created in the image of God or gods. And God said in Genesis chapter 1 verse 26, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Us, our, a council of elders, the Elohim, God men, black God men, naughty head, naughty bearded, black men from another place in this realm. Not aliens. Oh, the aliens did it. Fuck the aliens. We the aliens. Divine and powerful in the image of our makers. Maybe too powerful even. Because shortly after we were created in the image of God with the ability to reproduce for hundreds of years according to the Bible, which technically in the Sumerian king list, the names, the ages, and the time of span of rule for them God kings, they lived to be like 25,000 years old, some of them, man. Even older than that. And here in the Bible, we have a watered down version of it. Divine and powerful in the image of our makers. Maybe too powerful even. Because shortly after we were created in the image of God with the ability to reproduce for hundreds of years, we were intentionally confused, confounded, and dumbed down. Genesis chapter 11 reads, and the whole earth was of one speech. And they said, let us build a city and tower whose top may reach unto heaven. And let us make a name lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. And the Lord said, behold, the people is one, and now nothing will be restrained from them which they imagined to do. Nothing will be restrained from them which they imagined to do. Let us, here we have the Lord talking again, let us, or God, let us go down there, let us go down there and confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. In Genesis chapter 11. The Lord of hosts and God or gods of ancient earth were obviously ill prepared for their creation, that's us, to be powerful enough to imagine the reality we want into existence. Therefore, we were intentionally confused and separated from each other. And it's right there in your Bible. Except they ain't expect us to be able to decipher it. Because we was intentionally made ignorant. It was illegal to read in the United States of America about 300 years ago. They never expected us to get to this point. So they put our secret sciences, our occult esoteric knowledge right in front of our face because they know where the best place to hide something from a nigga is. Intentionally confused. And the Lord said, behold, the people is one, and now nothing will be restrained from them which they imagine to do. Let us go down there and confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. Intentionally dumbed down. I guess it wasn't time yet. According to the book of Enoch, We live in a time right now that was prophesied. This is the time right now for us to wake up, for God's chosen people, for the son people to know. What in our parents' time, what in our grandparents' time, they don't know. It's our time. Now, in the year of your Lord, 2016, we have a chosen few remembering our rightful place as the reincarnated souls of ancient true and living gods amidst mass confusion, subversion, and deception. But when the Most High God manifests itself in the form of the Greco-Roman rendition of Horus, he says, days will come and you will not see it. Don't look here, don't look there, God is within you. And they shall say to you, see here, see there, look here, look there. Go not after them, nor follow them. God is within you. The Most High Almighty God resides in each and every last soul being. Soul spelled S-O-L, which translates to mean sun, spelled S-U-N. It is our duty and obligation to comprehend the knowledge by which we may ascertain and empower this spiritual, etherical God-man within ourselves via stabilizing and proper alignment of the spinning wheel energy vortices located throughout our bodies, the chakras. This is the beginning stages of harnessing our energy force field grid and soul shield, the Merkaba, spirit, the Most High God, mind, body, and what? Indeed, that is a part of the image and likeness of the God or gods we were created by, whom were obviously flesh and blood living beings like us. The Merkaba can reach sizes of 60 feet in diameter, pending how aware the individual is of his or her true self, and is, of course, invisible to the naked eye due to its etherical and spiritual nature. The increase in sightings of orbs via recordings from our technological devices suggests that collectively as a whole, mankind is currently experiencing a reconnect to the divine as we remember our innate power to imagine whatever we want into existence. That which we are, were, and will be. Alpha and Omega, beginning and ending, eternal, immortal spirit. Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not be changed, and this mortal, behold, I show you a mystery. We shall be changed, and this mortal shall have put on immortality. That's read from, I think it's 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 55. Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall be changed, and this mortal shall have put on immortality. It is proven that on a molecular level, our blood appears to be of a liquid crystal makeup and structure. In other languages besides German, Roman, Greco-Americanized English, Christ is pronounced with the short I sound, hence the pronunciation Christ or Christos, crystal. As we prepare for the return of Christ or crystal, which is nothing more than our crystalline mutated DNA, or what they call junk DNA, remembering how to function, we must be ready to fully embrace and commune with this form of ourselves that is and forever will be, spirit, God. Or you could just keep sacrificing your true divinity from within to a group of men known as the Councils of Nicaea and Laodicea and their offspring, the Royal Roman Catholic Christian Vatican family, while inadvertently supporting, promoting, and enforcing homosexual white supremacy via fabricated fag doctrine, which creates a barrier between us and our true or higher selves. Infusing ourselves, SELLS, which translates to mean scales, like snake scales. Yeah, that's what the word cells mean. Human, colored man, snake man. Infusing ourselves by way of ingesting fruit smoothies and an all-around well-balanced diet of living food like raw vegetables is one of many great ways to prepare for the transformation from this physicality to that of the etherical spiritual realm. Meditation, focused breathing, and UV rays from the sunlight is very beneficial for some of us as well. Some of us. Physical activity such as exercise and self-defensive offensive training can immensely help also. In fact, to this day, cultures all over the world still believe in honorable death or transcendence from this physical existence to that of the etherical, relied on how strong and brave one was on the battlefield upon passing. God have not given us a spirit of fear, but of power. I'm inclined to use words like have faith and belief, being as though I was force-fed half-truths and disinformation for the first 20 years of my life via Roman Catholic Christianity. But interjecting words like have faith or just believe suggests something isn't true. Therefore, knowing that supreme intelligence and consciousness, which is the spiritual etherical body, is the Most High Almighty God, and we are simply experiencing our own manifestation in an effort to remember our divine state of being, is important to stand under as well. Creating healthy daily rituals like meditating and focused breathing helps tremendously in being alert, aware, and clairvoyant. Remember, consistency is imperative. We are what we do repeatedly. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit. You don't catch me quoting too many Greco-Roman faggots, but that one's pretty good. That's from Aristotle. We are what we do repeatedly. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit. Exercising and physical therapy or training, which has been scientifically proven to increase cognitivity, rebuild neural connectivity in the brain, and prevent degenerative disease. Exercising and physical therapy or training, which has been scientifically proven to increase cognitivity, rebuild neural connectivity in the brain, and prevent degenerative disease, is a great way to segregate ourselves from ignorance, the unknown, and the intentional bombardment of lies and propaganda. In David Perlmutter's and Alberto Villoldo's book, Power Up Your Brain, it states, a major component in the gift of neurogenesis is a protein called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, which plays a key role in creating new neurons, while encouraging the connection of one neuron to another, which is vital for thinking, learning, and higher levels of brain function. Increasing your production of BDNF, or brain-derived neurotrophic factor, and thus increasing neurogenesis, which literally means growing new neurons in your brain, is activated by a variety of factors, including physical exercise, calorie reduction, and intellectual stimulation, the book quotes. Learning how to focus without getting distracted by concentrating on one thing in particular, not multitasking, is essential to freeing our enslaved mind as well. Something you can try at home while meditating: concentrate on one thing or idea. It can be a generic thing or generic idea like an apple or the idea of unconditional love. Keep this idea in the middle of your forehead where the projected third eye is. While inhaling and exhaling, inhale deep and hold it, count to 7. Exhale even deeper while holding it and counting to 7. Repeat 7 times. It's something a little simple you can try at home if you like. We must be selective about what we invest our energy into. We must be very, very selective about what we invest our energy into. Very, very important, and the key to ascension. If you continuously listen to what these people tell you on the TV and all that, or what your teacher or your pastor telling you, you ain't gonna make it, Jack. You're not. The TV, the teachers and the preachers, they get their orders from this established science, education, and religion, and that's all based on white supremacy bullshit, lies stolen from ancient black people. If you want to keep on believing that shit, which is taking you away from what you are, there ain't nothing I can do. I could read to you for hours. I could write as many books as possible. It ain't gonna help you. You gotta want to do it. We must be very selective about what we invest our energy into. Energy is neither created nor destroyed. There is simply a transfer. Transferring our much needed energy into false flag deception used to govern our mental is highly illogical. We need to comprehend the influence of perception, objectivity, and the power to manipulate this physical realm with our thoughts and emotions, standing under the fact that consciousness and the way we think and feel directly affect our lives is imperative. Modern day scientists are admitting that the entire universe may be a thought-projected hologram being described by the many changes that continuously occur. Another secret that wasn't supposed to be told. Hence the reason you can Google it. Just YouTube. More than 70 scientists mysteriously died over the last 2 to 3 years, and you'll see it. You'll see it for yourself. Anything I say, put it in your search engine. Don't believe me. Don't take nothing I say for truth. Research it yourself, but you probably don't have time because you're busy going to class or going to church or going to Walmart or going to yoga class. You got to get something from Target. You got to get something from the dollar store. And we don't even have time to know what's going on. You don't even have time to take a few minutes and look up in the sky and watch your sun being blotted out right in front of your face. Nobody has time for it because we all stuck in this reality, whatever this is, whatever they want it to be. They are currently manufacturing a reality and an atmosphere conducive not for some people, period. The food we eat, everything is in direct non-compliance with us. Grow your own shit, basically. Transferring our much needed energy into false flag deception used to govern our mental is highly illogical. We need to comprehend the influence of perception, objectivity, and the power to manipulate this physical realm with our thoughts and emotions, standing under the fact that consciousness and the way we think and feel directly affect our lives is imperative. Modern day scientists are admitting that the entire universe may be a thought-projected hologram being described by the many changes that continuously occur. Mastering a craft is essential to higher levels of cognition and mental empowerment too. A lot of people consider themselves to be teachers or helpers of the human race. The mastering of whatever it is one loves to do is imperative in ascension to a higher state of being. Establishing a connection with nature is arguably the single most important step in the process of reconnecting to our divine selves. Supreme intelligence, also known as God, exists in everything around us and within us in the form of golden mean ratio. Something else stolen from ancient Africa and refurbished as phi ratio or Fibonacci spiral. Golden mean ratio is in everything from plants to the way animals, plants and trees, flowers, to the way a seashell. If you look at a hurricane from an aerial view, it's that same motion. If you graph it on a graphing calculator, it's that same hump, that same. If you look at the formation of your ear, golden mean is in that. If you ball your fist up And look at your fist from a side view. It's there. Golden mean is in everything and is within us. Golden mean ratio. Unfortunately, however, in some parts of this great sovereign land, mostly urban areas where guns and drugs are filtered in via our government's clandestine operatives, including but not limited to my very own state of Maryland, electrical power lines crisscross amongst each other directly overhead, no higher than 15-20 feet, resulting in an all-out assault and attack on human beings and mankind as a whole via electromagnetic frequency, wavelength, and resonance. They don't want you to remember who you are and what you are. These power lines are still used to this day in most, if not all, inner cities for electricity, even though 100 years ago an inventor by the name of Nikola Tesla manufactured wireless technology, including communications and electricity. Wealthy European banking cartels, the Rothschilds and J.P. Morgan, conspired with the president of the United States during those times to eliminate Tesla, because he planned to supply the entire nation and the entire world with free power. This would have effectively eliminated all gas and electric companies, subcontracted through the Corporation of the United States, subsequently drastically reducing America's income, revenue, and profit. Needless to say, Nikola Tesla was made to look like a radical mad scientist terrorist, and that was the end of him. Now, in the year your Lord 2016, one can walk and or drive for miles in the cities of urban America and not see a single blade of grass, let alone a tree, due to the influx of gradual, systematic technological advancements derived from Tesla's work. This is what his story calls the Industrial Revolution. Since the 1980s, when I was born, I recall witnessing condensation now turned chemical trails being released from the back of flying objects. Heavy metals, including aluminum and barium, dispersed in the upper atmosphere in an attempt to shield those of us whom are allergic to UV ray sunlight, and in the process poison our respiratory system. Certain nutrients, chemicals, and heavy metals are already naturally produced in our bodies. The overabundance of aluminum via chemtrails and deodorant products, coupled with fluoride in our water under the guise of purification, could be the reason for our disconnect from our true selves, source, spirit, ether, the Most High God, that is. And may prove to be the blame for the unprecedented number of black people under the age of 45 dying from heart disease, being diagnosed with cancer, and having horribly poor health in general. It's our diet, the foods we are eating or are not eating, according to world renown, yet somehow being kept secret from us via absolutely 0% mainstream media coverage, Dr. Sebi and Layla Africa. According to Dr. Africa, white sugar is a refined carbohydrate and is technically classified as a drug. That's why children fly around. That's why our children go nuts after they have their snacks. That's why they jump around. They end up getting in trouble. We fussing at them. Sit down. Be quiet. They high. You might as well give them some coke to sniff. White sugar is a refined carbohydrate and is technically classified as a drug. It takes 4 pancreases to process white sugar, while humans, of course, only have 1 pancreas. White sugar stresses the kidneys and liver. White sugar starves the brain of oxygen, causes adrenal weaknesses, baldness, blindness, attention deficits, causes tooth decay, causes high blood pressure, allergies, infertility, cataracts, glaucoma, nerve and brain damage. Nerve and brain damage in the form of multiple sclerosis and Alzheimer's. White refined sugar causes kidney failure, diabetes, hypoglycemia, hyperactivity, and arthritis, according to Dr. Africa. It causes cellular waste to congest the soft tissues and bones and requires large amounts of water to flush it out of the system, and is one of the most addicting and harmful drugs. So-called food ingredient we used. The refined, sweet, and delicious chemical known as sugar is a drug. Maybe the most addictive drug out here. If it ain't sugar, it's salt. One pinch too much of this sugar shit and or salt, and you may end up bedridden from cardiac arrest and or diagnosed with sugar diabetes. Yet, sugar and salt is a part of everything we eat. Considering that some of us convert anything we ingest into energy, even poison in the form of food-like products, I suppose this can be perceived as a lesson in perspective. Nikola Tesla, the godfather of our modern-day super technology, and who may very well should have been president or king of the United States, could be part to blame for why we are all gamer, zombie, techno automatons. And he could also be the reason why I have the mysteries of the world revealed to me in the palm of my hand via a smartphone. This entire story, not just his story, but rather the story of ourselves and existing here experiencing physicality, is based on each individual's perspective and point of view, which is based on experience, research, knowledge, and the uneducation of various forms of mind fuckery. Thoth the Atlantean, Enki the Sumerian of the Anunnaki, and even Lucifer, the Most High God second in command, it seems, according to the Sun Papers, the most powerful incarnation of spirit Lucifer was, the light-bearing bright and morning star. All these characters, Thoth the Atlantean, Enki the Anunnaki, the Sumerian, and Lucifer, all of these characters throughout the course of this thing we've called time are directly responsible for propelling us into remembrance of our divine selves, which unfortunately resulted in mass extinction each time and a transformation. According to Precession, we're entering a new golden age, another one of many. And let me just add, it was mass extinction each time and transformation for some of us. Right now we are currently experiencing transformation. That's why they got LSD and all these other drugs out here, because some people, non-melanin, non-soul people, are not experiencing this. They gotta take dope, they gotta take LSD and peyote and all these other mind-altering substances, while we, human, melaninated man, we can put ourselves in a self-induced trance via our DMT and experience these things. Only science, no bullshit. According to Precession, the precession of the equinoxes, we're entering a new golden age, another one of many golden ages rather, where a plethora and abundance of stars and suns and planets, light frequency, will be merging with our small dark portion of immeasurable heaven, bringing immense starlight and UV radiancy. Hence, the overabundance of chemtrails sprayed in an attempt to alter the atmosphere. Unfortunately, however, the perspective and point of view of our ancient ancestors has been skewed due to lies, deception, and the onslaught of poison to keep us enslaved, mentally, physically, and most importantly, spiritually. Thoth the Atlantean presented the Emerald Tablets during a previous incarnation of spirit into physicality, millions, maybe trillions of years ago. The Emerald Tablets of Thoth describes how spirit, that which is forever, Alpha and Omega, manifests itself into physical form to experience what we call being human. Enki of the Anunnaki, against his brothers Enlil's orders, warned us when we were the Sumerians of impending annihilation during the age of post-Atlantis, pre-Mesopotamia. And we all know the story of the son of the morning, do we not? Who just so happens to be the Greco-Roman Jesus' nickname too, by the way, the son of the morning. Ye shall not surely die, for God doth know that in the day ye eat, ye shall be as gods. I, Jesus, the bright and morning star. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? For thou hast said, I will be like the Most High. Essentially, the European councils of Nicaea and Laodicea perverted ancient African teachings while burning and stealing true esoteric occult knowledge. Then implemented the various mind control systems of belief we call Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism, Islam, etc. All the while, the sons of the morning, spelled S-U-N, are us. Be ye therefore as wise as serpents, yet gentle as doves. For I am Alpha and Omega, the first and the last. And I turned to see the voice that spake with me, his head and his hair like wool. His eyes were as a flame of fire, and his feet like fine brass, as if they were burned in a furnace. And he laid his hand upon me, saying, I am the first and the last. I am he that liveth and was dead, and behold, I am alive forevermore. You see, my friends, these councils of men left clues and hints all throughout the Helios, Biblios, or Sun papers, anticipating we would never solve the puzzle. Considering these same councils of men burned people at the stake for not believing exactly what they were told, and forbade reading and writing, it's not hard to comprehend why. And to this day, we have these Uncle Tom, Willie Lynch, coon-ass preachers enforcing white supremacy via religion because their false ego, fueled by the bullshit council of men's doctrine, will not allow these preachers to tell their flock the truth. The power of the Most High is within you. And a preacher, pastor, evangelist, or any other type of liaison or middleman is doing more harm than help. But that would effectively render an entire faction of hustlers and smooth talkers unemployed if the preachers and the pastors and the evangelists stood up and told them folks that. If they told them people that people will stop coming to church every day and giving every Sunday and giving their offering and their tithes and all that. But preachers and evangelists and elders and pastors not saying that at church. At church, this is what they preaching. Now, you know, this is a church building. It's the house of God, but bills still gotta be paid. We gotta pay taxes on this land we own. We gotta pay gas and electric. We gotta pay this and that. We gotta pay all these bills. And if you didn't know, all that money, them tithes and offerings that's being collected to pay church bills, that money is going directly to the Roman Catholic Vatican, the Queen of England, and the royal families and all that over there. Meanwhile, black people in Detroit homeless and can't even get clean water. Meanwhile, it's a dope epidemic in Baltimore City. 15, 16, 17-year-old children strung out on FDA approved legal dope. Oxycontin, morphine, and all that other shit. Moreover, taking into account how much revenue is collected by America's taxation of churches, this system's annual profit would plummet. If preachers and pastors and evangelists told their folks, hey, don't follow me, do your own research, you got God within you, align your chakras, eat right, exercise, drink water, stop eating poison, make sure you get your sun, turn yourself into God. No, you gotta come to church every Sunday and pay your offering. That's how you get closer to God. While America's taxation of churches is through the roof. Moreover, taking into account how much revenue is collected by America's taxation of church, all churches, this system's annual profit would plummet. We talking about big business, and a lot of people's backs and palms would no longer be scratched or greased, including the Pope, the Vatican, and the Queen of England, whom all receive a portion of American churches' taxes via the Internal Revenue Service, a private sector subcontractor of the United States Corporation. We don't see the paperwork that the IRS do. We don't see the taxes that they file, and we never will. And even if we request it and see it, they ain't gonna give it all to us. That's just like the NFL saying, "Oh yeah, we a $9 billion industry." That's the information they're making readily available to us. When really the NFL probably about a $90 billion. The NFL, the new form of slavery, NFL, NBA, all that shit is worth billions and billions of dollars. Baseball don't even have baseball don't even have a cap, a salary cap. Them niggas get paid, and they talk about recession and depression. That's the reason why. All the money going to them. Fuck. Moreover, taking into account how much revenue is collected by America's taxation of churches, this system's annual profit would plummet. We talking about big business, and a lot of people's backs and palms would no longer be scratched or greased, including the Pope, the Vatican, and the Queen of England, whom all receive a portion of American churches' taxes via the Internal Revenue Service, a private sector subcontractor of the United States Corporation. But by all means, black men, continue wearing the European suit and tie every Saturday and Sunday morning while swindling your hard-earned brothers and sisters' money out of their pockets into your offering plates and eventually in the hands of our oppressors. Congratulations, you're doing a swell job, black man. Meanwhile, at high levels of masonry, meaning none of you I wish I was a white man Goyim like Trayvon Martin's dad, who was used as a pawn in a chess game to excite emotion, initiates at high levels of Freemasonry practice what religion calls going to heaven. In order to reach the top level of Masonry, or so-called go to heaven, one must first relinquish this physical vessel or die, then take an etherical flight to what is called the Grand Lodge, located in the Sirius star system. The oldest existing tribe out of Africa, the Dogon, more than 200,000 years old, claim their creator gods are from this star system. The Dogon allege their gods of creation splashed down in a reservoir they created via ejecting water from their spaceship, and taught science lessons about our galaxy. Some 100,000 plus odd years before the invention of the telescope. The Sirius star system is also called the Dog Star System, hence the tribe's name, Dogon. Some of the plants in Africa are similar to the indigenous plants of South America that cause hallucination, for the record. Iboga or Ibogaine is one of the least well-known psychedelics, exclusively from a shrub indigenous to Western Africa, and is used to clinically treat heroin addiction. Most every Iboga experience involves vivid interactions with entities who go on diatribes about the user's life. Some users report having the foreign consciousness stay with them for days, continuing to give advice and answer their questions. This according to highexistence.com. Maybe this is why it's so expensive to book a flight to Africa. The United States pharmacopoeia would lose billions of dollars in revenue if we no longer needed any of their opiates, which just so happen to be derived from plants. Maybe this is part of the reason why we were removed from our home turf, while foreign invaders set up shop to reverse engineer our foods and medicine in the form of plants, while we slowly perish from man-made poison, viruses, and man-made atmosphere controlled by strategic aerosolized engineering. And at the same time, keeping us fear-filled by blaming the motherland for a new disease every few years, from Ebola to AIDS, both man-made in a laboratory right here in the DC Delmarva region. Nope, came from Africa. Bullshit. Nonetheless, the tertiary star system series A, B, and C, not binary like we've been led to believe, is the real sun or suns that every major religion pays homage to. The authentic Holy Trinity and power of three. Sun, moon, and stars. Man, woman, and child. Asar, Aset, Haru. Osiris, Isis, Horus. Father, Son, and Holy Mother, never to be confused with Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Isis, Amun-Ra, and Elohim, or Israel, the land called Israel. Isis, Amun-Ra, and Elohim. Every culture that came after our ancient African, Akkadian, Sidonian forefathers has adopted and propagated this hidden truth as defined by the Pythagorean theorem, ABC, Jehovah, Baal, and Osiris, the gods of early Judaism, and currently Father, Son, and Holy Ghost in Christianity, effectively removing the woman from the Holy Trinity, whom the ancient Africans revered more than the man, which is more evidence pointing to the promotion of homosexuality. Practices King James and his faggot lover and co-author of the tainted Bible, William Shakespeare, indulged in. Practices Alexander the Great and Greco-Roman councils of men indulged in while fabricating the entire New Testament and the character of Jesus the Christ, who is actually two separate Greco-Roman Euro-fags, named combined together, Zeus and Serapis, the Parthenian of gay Greek gods and all that bullshit. Homosexual practices and tendencies the Caucasoidian indulged in while being stripped of his melanin and banished to caves so they could lose their pigment, creating the white race no more than 6,500 to 7,000 years ago, along with having sex with monkeys and dogs and anything else that couldn't reproduce. And practices that these faggot rap niggas like LL Cool J, 50 Cent, and Baby Birdman, or whatever the fuck his name is, indulge in to this day. The Dogon tribe of southwestern Africa maintain, however, their creator god splashed down, revealing themselves as Catetian-like humanoidians who could survive in the reservoir of water they manufactured via their ship or walk around like a human on land. A human on land with the tribesmen. The modern day use of the fish as a representation of Jesus and Christianity, and the fact that popes and priests of Catholicism wear huge fish head